The data channel, and you're watching SQL Bootcamp for data professionals. And as part of this topic 20, we will be discussing about temp tables in SQL and what are the practical use case of using temp tables, right? Before proceeding, if you're new to this channel, recommend you to please subscribe and also press bell button for instant notifications. So let's get started. Basically, temporary tables in SQL are kind of a special tables we can consider because this will normally don't be used when you're just querying the data. So these are like a special tables used as an intermediate to store the intermediate results. Suppose you have a sequence of series of operations that you want to perform, right? So you are having a calculation so which is complex that you want to break the calculation into multiple steps, and when you're breaking the calculation into multiple steps, so you want to store the intermediate results into a kind of a buffer or intermediate storage. So that storage we are calling it as a temporary storage, right? And so this is a session specific. So this is very specific to a session. So this will not be stored into a physical memory, like into any physical memory, right? It is stored in a session basically, right? So, and these uh, temporary tables stored in the tempdb. So something called as tempdb, as you can see here. So tempdb is a system kind of it is like physically it will be stored in tempdb, and it will be kind of cleared as soon as your session ends. Or you have an option to explicitly clear also, right? You can drop the temp tables once it is used, or once the session is closed, automatically that will be deleted. So this is the what the by definition and what exactly the temp tables means. And you have a local temp tables and you have global temp tables, right? Usually, most commonly local temp tables are used, right? And with the asterisk symbol, and double asterisk belongs to a kind of a denoting them as a global temp table. That means it can be used across the different sessions, right? That's what it says here, right? Visible to all sessions. So there are multiple sessions active, right? So and so if you're creating this global temporary tables in one session, that can be accessed in another session. But in local temporary table, if you are creating a temporary table with a single asterisk which denotes the local temporary table, in that case it can be only used or it can be only referred in that particular session. So if there is any other session active, it cannot be used or it can be viewed. Okay. And so it is automatically dropped when the session ends. In this case, in the global temporary tables case, automatically dropped when the session that created it ends and no longer sessions are using it. Okay. Basically, because it is a global temporary table, right? So no other sessions also should not be using it. So that's extra conditions that it checks. So then only it drops that temporary tables. So now you might be wondering, right? So where exactly we will be using a temporary tables? So if you see, there are a lot many practical use cases. There might be a case where you want to break down the complex query. There is a most common use case where the temporary tables can be can simplify the large and complex query by breaking them into smaller chunk, which is more manageable, right? And you can create a series of steps to break down that complex query, and you can perform the operation by passing through the result of step 1 to step 2 and step 3 and so on, right? So next, where you have a staging data for ETL process. So this is also important where you can stage the data, like you can temporary tables can stage the data during the ETL operation, right? So for example, you want to load the data from multiple sources, right? Transform it and insert into a final table. So that case, you can use the temporary tables as a staging data in case of a ETL process. So next is handling pagination. So pagination is nothing but you have a page of 10, right? And each page is having like say 100 rows. And temporary tables can be used to implement that concept of pagination for displaying the large data sets, right? So in that case, like if there is a 10 page and each page is displaying five records, right? In that case of like you have a UI, right, which displays that kind of pagination. So in that case, you can use the temporary tables because you can break the tables into smaller chunks of tables, right? Smaller chunks of rows, and you can feed that to the user interface to enable the pagination concept, right? And you can also use the in the performance fine tuning. So this is which is very important. One of the like temporary table is one of the key feature that can be used to improve the query performance by pre-computing the results in the temporary table, right? So basically, instead of repeatedly joining large tables, you can store the result in the temporary table, so that can lead to the performance optimization, right? And also debugging a stored procedure. So this is a key aspect when you're using a stored procedure. Stored procedure usually can grow from simple to very complex, right? Because stored procedures are a series of steps or series of queries that you are writing, and temporary tables allows you to debug the stored procedures by storing the intermediate results, because stored procedures are not straightforward to debug. So what you can use is you can use temporary tables to kind of store the results into some temporary tables as a buffer location, and you can start validating that result step by step, so that that can be used for the as a developer, or in the during the development phase you can use it for the debugging, right? Or in case of any um, bugs or any errors that you see, you can use that for the debugging. And the next is you can use it in the case of a merging and deduplication. So temporary tables help manage complex scenarios like merging data or removing duplications. So for example, you have two data sets, um, and you want to merge the two data sets and remove the duplicates, right? So when you're performing the union, so you can perform the union, and so during union you can combine the two data sets which are kind of a uh, like a temporary tables, right? So these are the different use case so that we can see the practicals of it in detail. So first use case, we will see how it can be used for breaking down the complex query, right? And we will take a here example of find the top three products by sales for each category. So basically you have a sales table, and you have a sales table. Based on the sales table, you have this use case, right? And to perform this use case, we have this series of steps, right? So first step is to calculate the total sales for each product, right? And we are using the sales table here, and we are grouping by product ID and category ID, and we are aggregating the sales amount using sum here, and this result we are storing into a temporary table called product sales, right? And in the second step, what we do is so we read the product sales, and we use a rank function here to kind of partition it by category ID and total sales order, and we give a rank to it, and we call it as a ranked product. So this ranked product will be finally used, and we kind of see top three. We want to see top three. That's why we use this condition, and we can produce the final result, that is finding the top three products by sales for each category, right? So if you see these steps, and the final step is obviously like we can clean up the we can drop the table by cleaning it up. So as you can see, these are the top three ones, and even if you see top two ones, you are getting top two ones. But if you want to see top one, which is the top one here, so top one is these two, right? And the next one is we can see an example of staging data for ETL process, right? So you have a source table 1 and source table 2. For example, let's take stage table 1 and stage table 2 you have. And in the first step, what you do is you are doing a union. And once you do a union, you are storing the data in raw data. And that raw data you are using and applying some sort of transformations here. So, and that transformed data you are storing into a transformed data as like temporary table. And finally you read that and you insert into the final table, right? And you can display the result. So let's see how it looks like. So final table is already loaded, so can drop these two tables. Yeah, so this is the how do you perform a ETL, right? So basically during extract transform load, so you are using a temporary tables here to kind of store that intermediate result into some temporary tables and then perform certain transformations and then clean up the data and finally store it. So we'll go to the next use case where we can how we can handle the pagination, right? So we have orders. So the example we can take here is so return rows of page 2 assuming 10 rows per each page, right? And you have orders table here. So you want to display the orders in like maximum there will be 10 rows per page, right? And you have two page results. So how do you display that, right? So this is how you use it. So based on the records, I don't want to go in detail, but so you can use between 1 and 2, right? So you can see here between 1 and 2 is a row, and you can control it however you want between 1 and 20, right? So uh, however you want to control it, but just conceptually this is how it looks like, right? So you can see the status of the order and order ID, customer ID. Basically, you are using the concept of pagination here. So, and you can use between for the to choose between the rows, and you can store that in the temporary table and display it. And like another important concept is where you can use it in a performance tuning. So we can use instead of repeatedly joining large tables, store the result into temporary tables is the concept that we can see here. So you can see here customer table and sales table can be joined and the computed result can be stored in a temporary table because you might be using this pre-computed results again and again, right? So that is the case you want to store that in the you don't want to calculate that again and again in your query or in your store procedure. So you kind of store that in some temporary table because that's been repeatedly used. So finally you can use it in the main query, right? So that's the concept actually, right? So you can like so here computed results and this computed results you can use a filter, you can take a average, whatever you want to do, right? So that's the one of the use case when you are to perform the performance fine tuning. So next is debugging stored procedure. So where the temporary tables allow you to debug stored procedures by storing intermediate results. So let's take this example, right? So you have a stored procedure and you store the intermediate result into some kind of a temporary storage like order tables you will store in temporary tables where orders is pending. So then you can use that in the next debug step where you can see whether the result is coming as per your expectation, where only pending orders are coming or anything else is coming. So you can just kind of validate that, okay, and you can help in debugging. So there can be a number of steps in between after this or before this. So this is how the you can use this in the store procedure as well, right? And the last step is like definitely merging and deduplication. Again, it's a simple step. So we are just showing the conceptually how it looks. We are don't want to show the complicated code here, but we will show. We're just intended to show the simple steps here, so that conceptually you will understand and can be applied for simple and complex operations. So here you can see you are able to combine dataset 1 and dataset 2, and you are doing a union and writing it to the combined dataset, and that combined dataset you are doing a distinct and you are storing it as a in the unique dataset, and finally you are querying the unique dataset as a clean dataset because it doesn't have any deduplicate. I mean, it doesn't have any duplicates, and it is completely deduplicated. And finally, you will drop the tables. So as you can see, I'll drop this. Right, so this is a deduplicated value, so this doesn't have any duplicates. If there is any duplicates, it's already been removed from the dataset 1 and dataset 2, right? So basically this is a concept of like the temporary tables in SQL. And if you have any questions, any comments, feel free to comment in the comment section. Thanks for watching.